I'm Sylvia Pascoe. I'm the founder for Palm City Markets, and I find like this is our little platform to be in touch with the community. The whole purpose of Palm City Markets, we're calling it, our motto is now building business community culture. And the whole point of that is I honestly do believe that if every family in our country had a small business of their own going, it would make such a huge difference to the nation. So that's what we promote, that's what we're going to help other people push out around the country, and that's the point of the markets. But we're here, we've got a platform, we've got a space, and after helping a few different people do things recently, I thought, why don't we make a space that we can all just talk as well? I'm going to introduce Trish Toua. So Trish contacted me on Facebook that my first reaction was, no, I don't have time for this, sorry. And then, because I don't know Trish, I went to her profile and saw that she is a young woman around Jenilyn's age. And I thought, how wrong of me to dismiss her like that. So straight away I got in touch with her and I said, let's just have a coffee, let's have a chat, I want to hear what you want to do anyway. And meeting Trish and her friends, I realized, here's what's wrong is, we've got a bunch of people that are going to cast their first vote ever in a matter of months, basically. They're going to leave school and college and their high school, and they're going to join the workforce. And the same people that everyone's complaining about, they are now going to be sitting as police officers themselves. They will be nurses, they will be doctors, they will be in all these spaces that we're talking about people need to be better equipped to handle. So how wrong of me to say, no, don't protest, it's not a good idea, because if they are marching and they are protesting and petitioning and sharing their voice now, when they join the workforce, they will be carrying out the values that they marched for. So, hand over to you.
Initially, it started off with Jenilyn's case. Unfortunately, it had to start that way. It was an eye-opener for a lot of us, because I'm 19 as well. So when I seen that, I immediately thought, I don't want to be the next victim. I thought of my mom when I was small, and I would watch her get beaten up by her partner with a crowbar, with a lot of things. I've seen her go through a lot. And when you're a kid, you can't do much. You scream and cry, and that's as far as it goes, because you're small and you're tiny, you can't really defend her. And so all along, I've always wanted to do something, put an end to this. That's wrong. You don't want, I don't want my child to see me go through that. That's not what I want. It's a very emotional topic, sorry.
Take your time.
Yeah, so as a youth, I wanted to stand up, say no. I want youth to be aware that this is the type of society we are living in 2020. I want them to be aware that this is your community, this is what your mothers are facing, your next door neighbor, she's facing that, she's going through that. Your class girl, her parents, her family, they might not have a good upbringing, they're probably facing that. I want them to be aware so that they know if they're bringing in a child in the future, this is what she's going to see. This is what Papua New Guinea has for her. And I want them to, prepare themselves, know what's expected in the future so they're able to change and bring good for their future, for my future. And so for the youths, we want our females and our males to know that we understand what you're going through. We see you. We want the best for ourselves as well. We know what males are going through as well. We consider you. We know that most males are also victims of domestic violence. But a lot of the times, females are the ones who endure this constantly on a daily basis. We go through sexual harassment, physical, emotional, mental, all of it every day. We don't even do anything, and it just happens. We walk on the side of the road, we get catcalled, we get a lot of those sort of things, and I don't even feel safe myself. That lady, Thomas Otto, who walked with me, she held that placard, and then it went all over social media. And that just showed, it opened up my eyes to see, okay, these are the challenges that we'll be facing. This is what we're up against. I see it as a negative, but also a way to push us further, to know that, okay, this is the challenges that we're going to have to face. This is what we need to do to assess those sort of things. And so after the protest, we've had a lot of people get in contact with us who want to work with the youths. We've got a lot of recognition, which is so good. Our aim is to make a pathway for youths, for the next generation after us to have a voice. We want to make youths have a voice. We're recognizing now that we have a chance to speak up for the silence, for those who can't speak up. We know now that we can bring change for them. So we're working hard and to learn and understand as much as we can, because this is a very new topic to a lot of youths who don't really know the severity of this case. So we're taking a lot of cases in, and we're just trying to understand a lot of it. The Jeneline's case was just the surface. We had a meeting with Ms. Ruth Kissam, and a domestic violence victim, and she spoke about her experiences, which really opened up my mind especially. And Ms. Ruth Kissam also told us about the stuff that she works on, which that it needs to be addressed. People need to know that this is what's going on in Papua New Guinea now, today, and constantly, So that's what And the Silence is about. It's a youth-driven thing. We just started up from Jeneline's case, and then we're hoping to go further in the future.
We had a few meetings with Sergeant Job from the Family Sexual Violence Unit, and I think also that opened up people's eyes about how big the issue is and what's going on. So I thought it was important to have Sergeant Job here to talk about his job and what he's going through, and also maybe there's some things that we can be doing in our homes and in our communities to help make their job easier.
Thank you, and good morning, everyone, and my honorable minister here too. Thank you, and I think it's very important to get around and share experiences, share ideas to tackle this pandemic. And it's very, very important. As a police officer here, I'm also representing the RPNCC and the commission at this point in time, and it's very important. And we, FSVU, we have so many other police divisions and sections in the Road Public Constabulary, but for FSVU, we make sure nobody is left. Whoever comes to the police station, they are attended to until to the last person. That is why, we need support. Support from the stakeholders, public sectors, and private sectors. We want them to support. At this point in time, we have been in operation for the last 12 years, but we have never get assistance from our department. Frankly, I'm telling, I'm saying this is because we haven't get any support from our own organization. We are only relying on the law and justice, the JS4D, and the last 5 years or so, with the help of the Royal AFP, the Australian Federal Police, and we are ready, and we are fighting. But along the way, we face challenges in terms of administration challenges, operational challenges. So we seek support from all organizations. Every organization, based in Papua New Guinea, whether an overseas organization or homegrown or Papua New Guinean organization, whatever resource that you can donate to assist FSVU, we will appreciate that. We need a structure. And I believe my minister is here, and the Prime Minister is also aware of the structure, and we have been operating for the last 12 years. But a lot of our members, they're interested in joining FSVU. But they said, we don't want to be left alone. We don't want to waste our time. We don't want to waste our resource by working in FSVU because there is no structure. And structure means you have to lock onto a position. Structure means you have to lock onto a salary scale. So those are the things that we are lacking in manpower. But we are lucky to have more than 100 FSVU staff around the country. And in 18 provinces, we are fully established in 18 provinces and more than 30 FSVUs in districts. Okay, the process now. Okay, the process is we register them because sometimes when you look at it like in the long run, whether if it's a welfare problem, it becomes a criminal problem as well because in the long run, the husband might assault the mother or kill her. That is why whoever comes, we will have to take them as as a matter of a serious case. So, and at the same time, we're trying to we are doing it. We now trying to tighten up all the loose bolts and nuts in terms of our operations. We make sure that whoever comes and reports, we prepare the interim protection order. As soon as it's ready, we bring the perpetrator in, serve the order, and arrest him at the same time. We do that. But there are also challenges that sometimes women, they don't want to lay charges, but only the IPOs. But then men breaches IPOs. High-risk mothers, we refer them to the safe house until we complete all their files. So for FSVU, we attend to every case as long as it's a complaint.
Can I ask about the safe houses? Because somebody brought this up with me. They said that perhaps the safe houses, you can't stay there for a long period of time?
The victims, they stayed in there for a couple of days and they wanted to leave. That's another challenge. And they have their own policy because they have their own policy. Their policy is for us to keep them for only 2 weeks. And if there's nothing happen after 2 weeks, they can release them. But then the safety and security has to be priority. No matter what, you come in, if you are here as a humanitarian organization, you have to listen to the victim. You have to listen to us. Because we are the focal point of all the other partners, Yeah.
When you say something happens, do you mean that they don't follow up with their report? Are you saying that they might not follow up with the police? That's why they get moved out of the safe house?
No, we communicate. We communicate with the safe houses, and now some of the safe houses they've recruited in-house lawyers, and they've drafted the IPOs. And when the IPO is ready, we come in to effect the arrest. Just last month, we received about 600 cases in NCD, 600 cases, compared to the previous months and previous, times. Like we normally receive about 200 to 300. Wow. Just after the COVID-19, and we received about 600, and the service providers, based in Port Moresby, they also receive, and we also do a lot of referrals here and there. So maybe, in some of the safe houses, they have only 4 rooms or 3 rooms or just 2 rooms. So it's hard for us to, cater for everyone. And sometimes in one of the safe houses that I went to, about 3 women, sleeping on the lounge.
This does go on a lot, and we don't see it. Not everyone is on social media. Not everyone is someone that we know that we post about, And so I think the discussion around that, that's why I wanted to bring in Ruth Kissam to talk about Tribal Foundation. Can I hand it over to you to talk a little bit about Tribal Foundation and what you do, and how long Tribal Foundation and organizations like yours have been operating in this space?
Thank you, Sil. And thank you, Sergeant Job. We've met on a couple of occasions. I really admire you and the work that you do in this space. Thank you, the Minister for Police that is here, and the rest of everyone here to have this conversation, Lucy. We've been working in the space of sorcery accusation-related violence. It's also a form of gender-based violence. But in this one, there is no gender. It's the whole community, it's the whole family. It's community sanctioned, and then it's against members of the community and members of the family themselves. It's been happening. Actually, GBV in its form has been happening. It's not cultural, and that's what I keep saying. It's not cultural, but what it's taking on, it's like a mutation. What's now coming in, it's more about power. It's more about who gets to be and it can also be, female against male. It's not only something that we could only say that it's male against female. We can't demonize one gender and then glorify the other. What we do through Tribal Foundation, we use our program called Seni Simpasin. In our Seni Simpasin campaign, we go out into communities and we use a film, because people talk about Papua New Guinea, we think that it's, everyone's literate. We're not. We have people in the community, and then a lot of them, the way that we're also interpreting things like the Bible, how men see the way that we're talking about words like gender equality. For them, it gets to them as men, and their masculinity they feel like they're being challenged. And it doesn't have to be much. So what we've tried to do is go out into community and teach people about non-violent tools, communication tools. We try to talk to them about gender appreciation instead of gender equality. This is a society that is very old. We jump straight from the Stone Age into the digital age. Yes, we are out here wearing clothes and all that, but up here, planti something blow place and me blow limit. Mary plus blue and stop. Man plus blue and display. So in this, coming to understand that the balance and how to strike it between the male and the female, the gender roles. Some of the gender roles are so pronounced that even when you want to say something, someone else feels threatened. So how can we be able to massage this kind of delicate balance and then get them to understand that it's all about appreciating each other and the role that they play. But another thing that I'd like to stress on is the challenges that we were facing is actually to do with the police work. What we're seeing now is not men against women. This is a breakdown of law and order. This is a law and order issue. If we were to press on if we had a strong rule of law, we will not be able to see what we're seeing now. What we're seeing now is people that know that if I bash up my wife, I can get away with it because you don't have the manpower, you don't have the strength, you don't have you don't have enough resources to come after me. You would go after the other cases. Now, a classic example of what Sergeant Job is saying is that we've got 100 committed, dedicated FSV unit in 31 districts around the country. We've got 89 districts. We've got more than 8 million people. We've got 6,000 or 7,000 police. Given the ratio, we have about 1 policeman is to 1,200 Papua New Guineans. This is so bad when it comes to the UN index of policing, citizens of any country. But what we have right now is that huge disparity, and most of the police are actually stationed in places where in urban centers or in centers around the country where you have resources, because you have to protect that. Now imagine the rest of the country. Most of our work is in Enga. We have 250 policemen in Enga, and you have 500,000 volatile Engans. You won't be able to stop anything. That's why nobody stops. No policeman stops any tribal fighting in Enga. They're like, go ahead, finish your work, and after that we'll come in. So what we have now is that is another policing issue, implementation of the laws that we have. We're one of the most over-legislated countries in the Southern Hemisphere. We've got so many laws, and yet we're not able to implement those laws because all those written laws up there is now no connection between the laws and how to implement them on the ground. So then you have NGOs like us running around like headless chicken trying to fix a system that just cannot be fixed because you cannot be able to implement those laws. You don't have enough implementing mechanisms to implement those laws. We have laws like Lukotin Pikini Act, Family Protection Act. We've got laws that have always been there. Now we're calling for the GBV strategy. Now, we can call for one after another. We can have so many marches in the street, so many, all of that. But when you have a State Department that is overburdened, 100 dedicated FSBU staff trying to police 8 million Papua New Guineans. Now, that is where our problem is. Our problem is not that we don't have dedicated people trying to do the job. Our problem is simply that we have an overburdened system that the laws that we have cannot be implemented. That's why you have people that are bashing each other and getting away with it, because it's just that he won't go chasing after every 600 cases Because one policeman in Port Moresby told me that, look, Ruth, we've got 30 cases. Yours is the 31st, so I've got to go through the 31st. I cannot jump 30 of them and come straight to your case just because you think that you should be heard. So again, that's what we're having. We don't blame it. We can't blame the police. So I think one of the challenges is that how can we bring the quota up? How can we now bring the numbers of policemen up, train them well in the laws as well as how to police the country so that we at least have a number that is more decent. Instead of 1 to 1,200 Papua New Guineans, why can't we have them 1 to maybe 700? Cut that down, 1 to 600 Papua New Guineans. Maybe then we might have precedents. We might have prosecution that leads to conviction that leads to now jail term. Because now, my fear every time I'm trying to bring someone that has been tortured, I have policemen that goes into villages with me, and the torturers are standing there telling me that you can take this woman, but you can't take that woman. That woman will have to torture her until she returns the heart. But that woman, you can take her because she's only related somehow. But this one is the one that has ate the heart. And the policemen are like, okay, fine, we'll take this one. Because you look at them. If we are to drive out of that village, they'll cut the trees. They'll stop us. They have guns. They have bush knives. You have 200 villages that are looking at your 4 policemen. And so you're standing there thinking, oh, so who do I give up? That's the challenge. The challenge is that we need to have a system that has to work. He's overburdened. He's sitting there saying that we are giving everything we're doing, but he's overburdened. And that's where our problem is. From an NGO perspective, us working in this space for the last, 10 years, even pushing to have the national conversation around sorcery. We repealed the Sorcery Act, packed everything under this criminal code under Section 299A, making it a death penalty. Who stopped? The numbers keep rising. It's because we're not implementing those. So again, I mean, I'm not saying this so that we will have feel hopeless about it. Another thing, I'm happy that we've got now voices that are coming out to say that maybe the conversation is now starting to happen in such a way that, in a way, I'm happy. It's not only, it's a dark space for only one group of people. Now it's a space that everyone is, seeing light. So you have young people that are saying that this is not a norm. This is not the kind of future we want. And that's the kind of conversation we want to have.
So, hi everyone. For those that don't know me, I'm Hennah. I'm a journalist with TV1 and also a domestic violence survivor. Now, my journey has made me realize that I have a platform that I'm obligated to use to help people. It's not just about my job anymore. It's not just about... I've reported stories on this. The worst story was when I was a reporter with PNG-FM radio. An 8-month-old baby had been sexually abused. That's a story that stays with you forever. That was 20 years ago. This is a conversation we're still having now. It's crazy. Part of the reason I had to go public also was because it was for my own safety. I did what every other victim does initially. You hide it, you don't want to talk about it, you don't want to put your family in danger, all those things. And it took a male friend of mine to tell me, you need to go public because by putting the spotlight on it, you'll save yourself. Use your strength, and your strength is media. So I thought, you know what, screw it. I grew up in a home where there was violence in my own family. And I was actually the child that went against my father, and I called my mom's family and said, we want you to take her back after 22 years. We'd rather the family takes her and keeps her alive than she comes back to you in a coffin. And one thing that happened for me personally was before my father passed, he said thank you. He apologized. He wasn't perfect in his own marriage. And he apologized and he said thank you, because my family's initial reaction had been, you're on a one-way ticket home to West Papua. We want you back because we want you alive, because my whole family lives there. I went and had debates and discussions, and I told him, Dad, if I keep running, if I run now, I keep running. I'm not going to let that happen. I was born and bred in Moresby. Why should one individual make me feel like I don't belong? That's not right. So I made the decision to come back. I had reported my case. I was unconscious when my family reported the case to the police station at Waigani. That was Independence Weekend 2018. It's now 2020. And when that weekend went by and it was a public holiday on the Monday, and by Tuesday there was no call back, there was nothing I heard back, I went to a different police station. And I thought, I posted it online, and then I went to the police station. I thought, okay, you've got to use your weight now. I got a meeting with the Metsup. I went in and told my story, and I told him, you want women to come and ask for help, then you help us. If my case was reported 3 days ago, what am I doing here now? So he had to pick up the phone. He got my case transferred. He got me assigned, and he asked me, you're a high-profile person. How do you feel if it goes public? I opened Facebook and showed him and said, I've made it public because I have to. And so what I found is I've dealt with everything, the harassment, the intimidation. I moved 3 times in Port Moresby for my own safety, for my family's safety. I traveled twice back to Jayapura to get out of the country. I've flown my kids out of the country. This isn't right that we're living in a society where violence is so normalized. We are still bystanders up until today. I'm the type of neighbor where if you're going to harm somebody, I will call the cops. I've decided that my case isn't my story anymore. It's every single victim we've lost to violence, man or woman or child. It's every victim that's still out there suffering in silence because she doesn't have the strength to yet go public. She's still living. Every single woman has their own adrenaline story. Trust me, the torture, it's crazy. Since going public, I didn't realize to get the traction it would. I've had phone calls and messages come from media colleagues all over the Pacific. The posts being shared in Vanuatu's domestic violence page. I get phone calls from Fiji. I've had someone come and tell me from Tonga, Australia, New Zealand, and I've decided that this case, I want it to be an example because we have victims who aren't here anymore to tell their story. This case is going to tell their story right up to conviction and jail time because it's the right thing to do. I've been that woman that had to be taken to a safe house. FSVU acted immediately. And I'm standing outside the gate and I get a text message from someone, oh, is that you? We can see you outside the gate. I guess that comes with the territory with being in media. You don't have that luxury of having a private life. And I thought, if someone can spot me, what other woman is safe? Because Papua New Guinea is small and everybody knows where the safe houses are in the cities. I felt safer going back to my family because I needed, and when I went public, I also made the decision to tell my family about it. My family on my mom's side and my family on my dad's side together is bigger than the whole tribe of this one perpetrator. And they told me, if we have to, police minister at the time had reached out, and I said, listen, I'm helping you as well because if you don't do your job, I guarantee you, now that my families know, this is going to be a tribal war in the middle of the city. So you decide what happens because we can't just keep quiet anymore. I'm not going to put up with it. One thing I've learned in the process is persistence in dealing with every single person and actor that has a role to play in your case. I had to maintain communication constantly with my police investigator, with my police prosecutor, with the Metsup, with the minister, with public prosecutor's office, individually going and continuously following up myself to make sure nobody gave me the runaround, to make sure we were all on the same page. I've had to take ink and go and help the police print out certain reports. And the response from individual women all over the country, I've been asked for help by police women, wives of policemen, wives of very prominent business people, partners of very prominent politicians. I'm just one person. What do I do when a policewoman says to me, he's breached his IPO twice, he's attacked me on the way to the courthouse, how can you help me? I need your help. The only difference between her and I is that I made it public and I have to use the media and use my strength to make sure that I give the best advice I can. I have no legal background, I have no experience with the NGOs and the safe houses or anything, so it's just reaching out again but I've covered all of those things in my line of work. I've interviewed sorcery accused victims up in the Simbu province. I've interviewed the children. I've interviewed anyone and everyone that's ever been a victim of domestic violence or any kind of violence in the country. That it was so ironic that I would end up being in a safe house and being one of those victims. And I thought, what the heck is going on when I have people in these very sectors doing their jobs and still being victims? Something is so wrong here. Our systems are so broken, and we need to find another way. There's 100 ways to skin a cat. We just need to keep going and looking for what's going to work eventually.
Thank you. I feel like you touched on so many things that is worth talking about there, and generational trauma is something that we have to talk about. A lot of the perpetrators and victims have been through it on some level in their homes as children, and either they're behaving in the way that their parents acted before them. They're either accepting the violence or they're doing the violence, but that cycle just keeps going until somebody stands up and says, oh, wait a second, this is actually not okay, this is not right. And when you are a victim, I think so many times, again, you don't expect that you will be that person, and you don't know what to look for. And I don't think there is any certain telltale signs until you are in a situation that you suddenly realize, wait, I'm not in control here of my own life. What's going on? Something which I have shared recently is that, again, people don't think it happens to everybody. One of my exes, the reason I left him was I had a knife in my face one night. And for the life of you meet this guy, you would not think he would be capable of it. We were together for how long? The yelling, the screaming, the shouting, the breaking my things, none of that ever seemed like it was too much for me to handle until one night I'm like, wait a second. There's a knife in where is this gonna go? And then I suddenly realized, oh my God, I'm in that position. And you don't think about it until you are there or until somebody you know is going through that. So thank you so much for sharing and for talking about that, because I think that is the biggest thing, is that, again, if more of these groups can happen in every corner and people can feel comfortable enough to realize that we've all kind of gone through it. And I think it was David Lawrence that got up and he asked everyone to show of hands. In that sea of people, show of hands who has experienced some form of violence in a relationship or in their home. Put your hands up. And we were expecting, was it 2 out of 3 people? But you looked around and I think it was every single hand was up, And so we do need to talk about it more, and we do need to be there for each other more. And that's where I'll lead into Bono, who I say this is rallying around a friend. His good friend Debbie suffered at the hands of her partner, which again is something we all saw sort of play out in front of us in the media. And what was the response from her friends and the sporting community that she knew? I think that needs to happen more often. So, Bono, please share.
I broke the news for Debbie because she was obviously a little bit scarred for releasing it on her social media, so she kept it private. But I told her she has to put it in the forefront, and then if she's feeling a bit conservative about it, I'll do it for her. So that's what I did. This was a month and a half ago or something. I'm pretty sure 6 weeks. And then obviously the footage, she shared it to me. I put it out in public, and then it went viral on social media. I mean, within a day or two, and everyone knew about what kind of man that she was involved with. So because obviously she's physically strong, like she's a rugby player and a boxer, she endured obviously you guys saw the footage, it's crazy. She endured that, and any normal female would most likely lose their life. That was some horrific thing. Like, she, full force of a weapon on her head, most people would die, like especially a female. So she endured that. She reached out to me to do that for her. That's what I did, demonizing this disciplined forces man who was undisciplined. Obviously, there was mixed emotions, and they were like, all right, he has the right to do this and that, but they just represent the mindset. Even some educated friends of mine who went to uni and stuff, who shared their viewpoints and said that, yep, he was disciplining and she was wrong. And then instantly they were like, she was cheating. And the PNG man mindset is like, if a woman is promiscuous, beat her up. They don't allow any freedom for that. But for me, that's like, it's sick. It's a sickness. So my friends that were in uni and stuff, educated, they were sharing this, not even animals are more human than these guys. So I was like disgusted. I unfriended them, I blocked them off social media. These are the type of men that I don't even want to get to know, you know what I mean? Because they will represent many wrong things that's wrong with their mindset. So that's what I shared out, and then he got the attention that he needed to get, and then 3 weeks later, and then we had the gentleman case. So it's just like the guy was surrendered to the police. I don't know exactly what the process. He got out on bail, and then it's sort of like, how would I say, he didn't get the, how would I say, the consequences that he deserved instantly. So it sort of promoted this, and then, not promoted, but sort of gave that mindset to this other guy who's obviously in jail now, Bossip, and then to, you know, use force and stuff, and then in a way too, it affected the other outcome of that too, because he saw that that guy didn't get his just punishment. Obviously everything was going in process, but obviously he got stepped down from his post in the military and all that. But it sort of prompted that for the way I see it. I was there too last week for the governor, and they were talking about NCD governor about what we can do and stuff, and then a lot of people, Dr. Fiona was there, and she said the same thing, enforcement, as Ruth was saying, enforcement is a massive thing, and it's just what happens in a community. It's like I told the governor, it's just about the citizens being active, you know what I mean, like talk in your male circles, like the guys share ideas like what you're doing wrong, and then openly talk about it, and then also just being active. When you see your brother or sister or someone that's enduring this or doing this, you have to step up. You have to step in the moment and then diffuse that. It's your responsibility. You don't have to let it happen and the police to step in. It's ingrained in some of these men, the modern, like the guys my age and younger who have this mindset. It disturbs me. And then now hearing Ruth and everyone, Hennah and everyone share it, it's overwhelming. It's like me trying to pull cool sea into the ocean and expecting you to turn red. Like, I'm hearing all this, and it's honestly, I'm a guy and I feel overwhelmed. I can't imagine what it feels like for a woman to see not only come up in a tough environment that's PNG, but endure in the close proximity of your family and your community and all that, and have to endure it. I'd go insane. Like, I'm hearing it and I'm just like, this is not a battle. It is legitimate war, like a domestic war we're fighting in this whole scope that's PNG. So Debbie's case, Debbie, in fact, obviously put it in the forefront, FSV, all that. And then the military officer's mother went to Debbie and then wanted to stop her from reporting this, saying that, like, you know, you shouldn't do this. You know, you're gonna spoil his name. You're gonna get him fired. And I was disgusted. I was like, how can a mother, another woman, defend the wrongs of her own son? So I mean, it resonates too generally in the female population. To some mothers, actually, and then aunties and stuff, they condone those things happen. They don't realize that they're women too. Like, I don't know. Like, do they feel like they're from Mars? We're all from the same planet. Like, it applies. If it happens to a woman, all women face it. When someone does wrong, it's black and white. You have to be tough. Even if it's your family member, this and that. If they do wrong, absolutely. Let the Lord decide, and then leave it as that. You don't have to use your influence, try to sugarcoat it and then water it down. I feel that too in the female perspective. Some mothers and aunties and even sisters, they do that, and that's totally wrong. That's a sickness too in itself. And as in association with that, the men too, how would I say, if they can beat their female partners, their wives, their girlfriends, but if it's their mother or sister that gets beaten by another guy, they'll come in all their tribesmen and say, all right, what did you do? I'm gonna belt you. It's psychotic. Like, I don't get it. It just does my head in. Like, people don't see, it's a lot of gray areas when there shouldn't be, just black and white. So it's just, I just feel exhausted talking about this, honestly. Like, I'm an athlete, but I'm out of breath just talking about this. It's just mentally exhausting, like just imagining this war we're trying to fight. And then, I mean, there's many things wrong with PNG, but this is a big one. And yeah, honestly, I'll cut it short. I'm exhausted.
It's not going to be fixed overnight. We have so many things that need to be fixed. It's not just the police force, it's our society, it's our communities. And that's why I asked you here today, because Bono is an example of just a really great guy. That he saw a female friend of his that needed help, and he stood up and he helped. And that is the most basic thing we can do. And I think that is something that we need to talk about more, and why I wanted you to come here, so that people can see that that is as simple as it has to be. You being a good neighbor, you being a good friend, calling it out when you see it. Preston has created a platform to bring this conversation out in the open. That's why I wanted him to come here. It's the kind of thing all of us, again, we can do in our corner of the city, in our corner of the country. So Preston, I'll hand it over to you.
With this whole discussion, I'm personally someone who's had experience with it, growing up in a home with domestic violence. And nothing was done about it for my family till I was old enough to defend my mom. And then the men in my household knew that you can't mess with her because I'll be there. But so it's something that I was always personally passionate about. But about 3 years ago, I noticed how we have all of these cases that come out on social media and people get up and talk. But I was disappointed in how we only do it for a period of time, and it lasts for only 2 weeks. All the outrage and stuff, and then it's gone after that. And for me, it was like, what have we achieved? So I thought about how I need to create a space where there needs to be consistent advocacy, and we need to keep talking about it, because as everyone has highlighted, there is a lot that needs to be done, and it's not going to be done overnight. And it's something that we've got to keep working on until we get those results. So 3 years ago, I was like, I need to start a campaign. So I looked around. I was going to do a dress in black every Friday to run it, but then just doing some research, I found out that Black Thursday was an existing thing that started in the 1970s for, I think, women in war-torn countries who got kidnapped and abused and stuff. And I was like, look, that's a platform that's been there. There are people already been doing it. I'm not going to reinvent the wheel. I'm just going to go along and support that. So for the last 3 years, I've been doing it every Thursday. I dress in black and I post on my wall, and my slogan is, say no to all forms of violence. Because for me, it's bigger than just the gender-based violence and what happens in home. I'm also concerned about the lawlessness on the street and what's happening with our young people. And back home, it's the knife cuttings and the spear wounds and stuff. And we've got to deal with all of these things. And for me, it's not just something that's about government. Everyone calls up and says, what is government doing? But my question has always been, what are we doing as individuals? And what's our role to play in all of this? So I was, it's been really great, as Bono and others have shared, it's overwhelming what we have to deal with. But I've been doing it for 3 years as an individual, and I'm so excited about the difference that I've seen that's happening. It took me 2 years of doing it before. Now my provincial administrator, Dr. Clement Malau, and my governor, Alan Bed, they've taken it on board as well. And so I've got those voices now to support me, doing it in my province, which is exciting. And my governor did, he spoke a week ago, and he was like, let's make ECPIC safe for women and girls. And one exciting thing about having us young people involved is all he had to do was say it. I talked to my young guys who do graphics work, and they created a poster, and my governor's like, wow. And I'm like, you can just speak as the leader. We'll take it to the next level. That's what we do. So, but it's been really great. Eventually, so now I have provincial leadership doing it. I was really excited to see BSP has now launched their Black Thursday campaign. That's awesome. And and for me, the thing is, we talk about the statistics, like what we're saying, maybe 2/3 or something. I'm not knowledgeable in the space about the laws or statistics or anything. I'm just someone who wants to make a difference. I'm just a guy, and it's one thing to say that there's 2/3 of the victims in the space, but it's another thing. For me, what my vision, what my goal for this was ultimately is for everyone who is a victim to dress in black on Thursday, so then the government can look around and say, wow, you can see it on paper, you can say 2/3, but when you see it in reality, people dressed in black and the colors, it's just like, oh my God, this is a problem. And it is something that we have to, deal with. And so it was really nice to see, Medeng took it on, but they deferred on Thursday and they did it on Saturday. I came here and I hosted a walk, and it was really nice to see a lot of big NGOs and partners come on board and do it. And so they asked me who and why are you doing it? And I'm just like, I'm just a guy, And back home, it's me and the people that I do it with, my young boys who have this cyclist group. And these are the dropouts. These are the people without jobs. These are young men who are the drug addicts, the drinkers, They cause problems in society, but for themselves, it's just we want to see a change. And so they started this cyclist group to promote men and boys behavior change through doing that. So then I take them on board. So for the last 9 months, we do Black Thursday walks every week. We do it every week to advocate against violence so that no one can question us and say, where do you guys come from or anything. We'll do it for everyone. Because the violence is happening all the time and there are so many victims that we don't get to hear about. But, so I'm excited to see all the conversations that are happening now. And my encouragement to everyone is that we need to be consistent. Because if we're not consistent, we aren't going to get the respect or we're not going to get the platform and stuff. And for those of us who are doing it now, I may not be a victim now, but I do it to give a platform for those who are in that space to try to push laws or push resources and whatever needs to be done. And just like personally now, like for what we're doing in ECPIC, now that I've got my governor's support, my new job, my boss is here, Chakriya, my job is looking after the seasonal worker program for ECPIC province to sort of vet people before they go out to Australia. And part of my exclusion criteria is gender-based violence, is child abuse. You are not going to get opportunities. You're not going to come through me if you're a perpetrator for these things. Because we've got to start creating systems where these things are now, you lose out on opportunities in societies, organizations, companies need to make it a thing. And then, because it's not just about what the police has to do, what government has to do. We all have a part to play. And once we do it and we start changing, the thinking of society, it's been very interesting to see all of the discussions on social media, how everyone, there was so much against, Otto Thomas for having the placard and, there's so much going, it shows how much we have to deal with. And it's not a short thing and we've got to be in it for a long haul. I've been doing it for the last 3 years as an individual. I'll do it for the next 10, 15, however long it takes until we see change for this nation because we all need it. Because if we don't, apart from the gender-based violence, the lawlessness is going to get out of hand. And I may be a victim one day, and I may not have that strong a voice, so I've got to build a voice all around me. So if something happens to me one day, I got this whole army that's going to back me up. So that's all I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you. That's the whole thing, with something as simple as wearing a black t-shirt on a Thursday and going for a walk with a group of people, you are building a community of people around you. And so that's something I said to you after the march. If somebody comes forth and they go, I've got this thing, but I feel alone, look around. You're not. Look at all these people that are here today. You know that these are people that if you call them and say, I've got a problem, they're not going to turn you away, And that's what we need to start doing. So, why I wanted Preston to share that, and as well as Ruth and what she does, is to show that one, it's going to take a long time. You're there for the long haul if you really want to see change in our society, and you can do something so simple. It doesn't have to be.
I was actually walking through Gordon's Market the other day. Obviously, that's like Afghanistan on another level, but so. There was this guy who was beating up his wife, and then the public sort of confronted and turned on him. They said that Islamani online will kill him or marry stuff. Now why are you making it? And then there was all these guys who were beating him up, So it's sort of like the awareness. I know it's bad, but I'm saying like it put it in the forefront that the attention to the situation. It's making people, especially some of these violent guys, they're more cautious with their actions. They're like, people are keeping an eye on me. It's out there. The more we keep, like our brother here said, the awareness, we keep it going, and we not like let it die out, but in the forefront at big events. Obviously, we've seen in the newspaper that time when the death came. It's just like I've never seen that much corporate sector. Like they just plaster the newspaper and doing. That was big. I've never seen it done in PNG or even Port Moresby in general. So that was a massive step to fight this. So. Like Ruth and many others that have been involved in this for so long, like this is the turbo boost that you need to really make the change within our lifetimes. So it's possible. So I'm seeing that happen firsthand, and it's taking an impact. It's having its power. So I think I saw something on social media too in Goroka. They did the same thing. So some guy beating his wife, and the crowd turned on him. So it's just like. It's having its impact. Obviously, we don't promote that type of violence, but with the police, I'm not do it yourself. I'm kidding.
Yeah, that is the thing. I don't want to advocate for people to go out and just belt other people for belting people, but I am pleased to see people standing up for people in this space and not just turning a blind eye to it. And I do find that most of these perpetrators, they get away with it because no one says something. And as soon, and I've seen it happen so many times as well, as soon as another guy especially just confronts them and says, what are you doing? they go into their shell. They go, oh wait, no, somebody's called me out on it. They stop doing it. And that's what it takes. If your guy friend, or even if you, I feel like they will respond to strong women as well, turning up and saying, oh, because I have seen Tanya go and knock on a door in the middle of the night to say, what do you think you're doing? It makes them change. It makes them stop to suddenly realize, no wait, somebody is actually going to tell me I can't do this. So again, as simple as just telling someone that's not okay, that's the most simple thing you can do. Chakriya, grab the microphone.
I'm just jumping up and down here because Bono hasn't told you about the patrols that he's been doing. When you're talking about somebody just taking the initiative and doing something, Bono, you tell. This is awesome.
So I started this neighborhood watch with a few select group of friends who just, with the whole idea of not really enforcing law, but being the watchman of our neighborhood. And then obviously if anything goes astray, and then we contact the police and the relevant authorities. But it's just being active citizens. The brother said it's the power's on us, the people, to impact the change within our own community. So it's been going for 3 weeks now. Obviously, I don't have the time, so I donate like an hour and a half, 2 hours, 11 to 12. Obviously, because on weekends especially, because that's when alcohol-fueled episodes happen, and it's just passing through, and then my neighborhood, I'm just invoking like a presence. So I pass out flyers and stuff within my own neighborhood. I printed it myself. That I just get other young men to volunteer and just protect our neighborhood. Obviously with gender-based violence in mind. Like obviously if there's someone that beats their wife, we beat him. But it's just all about being aware of the situation within our neighborhood and then just being active citizens, because the power's on the people. We're the foot soldiers, so it makes sense to impact it straight away. So 3 weeks now. I do it on Fridays and Saturdays with there's 4 of us now. There was 2 and then now it's 4, so it's building. So it's a start with something. So like I said, neighborhood watch, being active citizens.
Thank you, that's awesome. Thank you. One of my friends actually said to me the other day, she's African, and she said in her neighborhood back in Africa, there's a group of guys, again, they're just from their street, and she goes, they wait for them to finish work, and a lot of them work quite late. So she's like, we finish around 11, so they wait for us out on the street. And she said they just bang lids to let us know that they're outside. And so when we're done work, we all come out and they escort us up to where we catch our rides home every night. That's what they do, and it's as simple as that. So, I mean, again, that's something, you can talk about in your neighborhood if women just need a walk to the bus station, or for people to just come and hang out with them at the bus stop. It could just be that simple. So Terrance and Lucielle, they're White Rock Security. I love their whole model is equality. So they've got 60% women in their workforce. You can see a lot of the women around in their uniforms. I love that. I think that's the kind of thing that helps change perception as well. So, please.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, Honourable Minister for Police. Yes, we're White Rock Security Solutions. And basically, yes, it's about changing the perception. And changing the perception on women. Now, yes, we do have a 60% women and 40% male workforce. But besides being just a security company, we're also attending to social obligations. Now, we're sitting here talking about the victims. But what are we doing about the perpetrators? So what we're trying to do in terms of working alongside with CIS and the National Youth Development has actually come forward, because women inside the prison center actually looked for us after hearing what we did in terms of walking from Unagi to the Parliament House and up to the St. John Guy's Stadium. Now, we didn't intend to take the frontal lead, but it just happened that in taking community down to Unagi and walking with them through to the Parliament House to get reaction. We need to get that reaction, and we need to get the action. And yes, likewise what Ruth was talking about, we haven't actually talked about the implementation of things, and we're struggling with it. So what we're doing as a business entity is also taking that lower level of people in. We have forgotten the lower level. They don't have the information that we're all talking about. They don't have access to the people that we have access to. So in bringing them in and taking them as part of our workforce, on top of giving them the sense of security, we're talking about the security of the mind, the heart, and physically. So when you get trained in terms of combat training and self-defense, not only is it giving confidence to the woman, but it's also allowing the male partner to see what the woman is going through, their male colleagues, to see that, right, this is happening to our women and how we can work together on it. You can't do things by women alone. We need our men to stand with us as partners, as our best friends. Now, if we keep them at that level and they start seeing that, right, okay, this is how we're progressing in terms of the woman feeling more confident. At the same time, knowing that we have access to human rights. We are now giving them lessons on human rights. The information that they actually need. Because most of the times when we're talking about it, we're actually sitting inside a conference room. We're not talking about it on the street. Like what happened after we did the protest right up to Sir John Guy Stadium. The people were left outside while everybody else was talking inside. You forgot the people. You forgot the people. You forgot to come out and actually talk to the women who are raising the issue. When all of us sit together in our little elite groups, we talk to ourselves, but we're not talking to the little one who's actually sitting outside who actually needs that help, and they need the information. And so in building our workforce where they have that information and access to it, they can actually go and spread it to their communities, knowing that if I can give them the UN Human Rights System and documentation, of which I'm certified to do, if I can give them that, imagine if we establish that right through every corporation, every company, that they can give it back to their people. If everyone becomes documented and certified in it, then we have a whole country that's informed. If we have everybody going through self-defense, being part of their corporation, then we have a whole lot of women who are walking on the street and they're going to feel confident about themselves. So let's look at the practical solution of it. And that's what we're trying to do in installing that into our guards. They're not only going to stand there and look at you, but we're giving them customer service. So they know how to talk and smile nicely to you now. Rather than you go to the Moresby General Hospital and you find somebody gives you that stringent look that you don't want. They don't understand how the hospital system is. You have somebody there now who has customer service. Our people at the lower end are not given customer service training. So if you have a security guard who's meeting you right at the front and talking to you nicely, talking to you differently, imagine if all of us can talk to each other properly, with manners. We've forgotten manners. It doesn't happen in our schools anymore. So those are things that we're trying to implement into White Rock Security, where now we've had reports that yes, the women feel more happy that our guards are here taking care of the markets. There hasn't been any incidents yet. But the last time they were here, we had a drunkard that was outside there. We sorted it out in 10 minutes. That's what we need. We don't need security fighting and belting everybody outside there that we know that, yes, he got problem lo hapsay. It's done. Effectively, efficiently, out of the way. And if we can work with police on that, I'm sure we can work a deal in terms of how we sort out the bill nut issue. Those things within the city and out to the rural areas. So if we actually implement practical solutions, rather than just talking about it within ourselves, then we'll work. Because if we could lead 2,500 people, yes, I apologize that yes, the COVID-19 rules weren't looked at, but if you look at 2,500 people, only one traffic police car and 8 policemen, and the rest are all women standing there as guard and no problems, I'm sure we can change this country.
Looking back, we've been advocating about issues, violence against women, gender-based violence for 45 years. And we still keep advocating. We just talk, and nothing really has come out from it. Young people are now facing the violence. We lost a lovely young woman, Janeline, just a couple of weeks ago. But there are others, and there are thousands out there. Now I'm touched by your stories, that you are standing up to fight this. I decided that we've got to do something, and my way of thinking was, because PNG is a male-dominated society, everything belongs to the male. I'm a father and a grandfather speaking here, and I've come through this. Pasin blame me over something and manta soli go pass. And that is come through generations, and it is now affecting also our young society. They feel and they think that men are dominant over women. Even today, I believe that the church has a part to play in this too, because when they preach, they talk about Adam and Eve, and they are saying that God he created madam, nem kisim bun bloib, so Mary em stabani loanem. Man. Now we've got a cultural system that we used. Now we got a new system that is coming through the churches. It's really confusing a lot of young people. And the amount of violence has grown. We are not decreasing, we are increasing every day. There's a lot of stories. I have stories to tell, but probably another time. I'm not a perfect father, mind you. I'm not a perfect husband. But I believe there's time now, and I'm really, blessed by these young people that they are standing up to this. So I have decided myself that I got to start something that must challenge and change the perception of society, how they look at females. A female is not a sex object, number one. Don't look at a female and you reckon that she's only good for the bed. She's a human being, she's got respect and she's got dignity. Our men forget that a lot of times. And they see women differently. How am I gonna fight that? So I said to myself, I'm gonna start up something, and this is not a journey that I started yesterday. It's a 2-year journey. And I spend my own resources to make it happen because I believe the women in this nation deserve better into the future. I've got 2 daughters and I've got granddaughters too. So I decided to start this firm because I felt that something must be done. It's not only just a security firm, but we decided that we must have a social obligation. For example, we believe that women must now have voices in the community. So one of our social platforms is we must have this neighborhood watch, but it has to be females. They have to be connected to our organization. So when there's a problem there, they call us, let's get the police, and let's go and attend to that problem. So we are trying to play our part to so. There is a vibration around the community that you know can walk in this love because all I need by come kisim you. We are not speaking enough. Young people, this is your future. What sort of society do you want to have in future? It doesn't look good at all. From this point of time, it doesn't look good. I tell my own children, I am looking at a very bleak future. If we are having so much violence, just imagine 30 years from now. Do we all want that? No. So I've started something. It's a small dream, but I believe, I might not be around to see it, but I believe if females can stand up, like a security service is a male-dominated services. So I decided to try this out. I got a great woman sitting here, Lucielle Paru, who is leading the team to try and see if we can get females to come in, train them, send them out, and they advocate the message and try and bring a different approach to the community and to the society and say, hello, we are not here because we want to do this job, but because we want to be part of the change into the future. So that is what I want to share this afternoon, Sylvia. I mean, Lucille has spoken already, but this is where the idea came. It's because women and girls must have a better future, and we can't keep going the direction we are going. And I'm glad that Preston has started something. This young lady has started something. We have to have more voices. This country deserves better. And I believe women are great leaders. I believe women are great. I wish in our time there were a woman prime minister, and you will see this nation move. I always believe that women are great leaders. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Sylvia, first for organizing this event. And it is the initiatives that need to be had to get this issue dealt with. So the issue of domestic violence, unlike any other crime, it involves people who know and care between the victim and the suspect. Yes? And that's why it becomes extremely complex. So if someone robs you down the street, you're happy to go to the station, they find the guy, you're happy to testify and have him jailed. When that person is the person you fell in love with, got married and had kids with, then it changes. And so from a policing point of view, I mean, before I go into that, I think people need to understand this is a psychological issue. And therefore, that's why it's deep-rooted, and that's why it is not something that you're gonna be able to fix so easily, and people burn out trying to fix it because you're dealing with people. And from psychological issues, it becomes behavioral. And we basically, people who built of perpetrators of domestic violence are people who have bad habits. So people who don't belt their partner are people with good habits. So we are nothing but creatures of habit. So when we say repeating, cycle, they're just habits because we're creatures of habit and we repeat ourselves. And so if you go to work every day, on time, every time, turn left every time to work, we just say it's instinct, that's habit, so we developed over time. Those are in the space of domestic violence, violence against women, they're habits that they developed over time, and some get to the point where they develop the habit to an extreme. Others are starting their habits from verbal abuse, then it moves from verbal abuse into physical, initially first time, second time, third time, and then it goes to a point where you get extreme cases where it leads to death, as in Jenden's case. So belting up someone that's a perpetrator, yes, immediately will stop, pain threshold, but he wants sustainment. And so unless we have positive reinforcements, role models, discussions of changing those habits, then you'll find a solution long term. So we're in a country and a community now where we have a lot of people that have developed a lot of bad habits over years. So in terms of policing or crime, you've got to take away the opportunity. And the way to take away the opportunity is one, expose it. So awareness, talking about these issues, exposing people, putting it in the media is the first step. The second step is accountability. So if we don't have accountability, then basically, and you just got awareness, eventually pain threshold is enough because accountability is the pain threshold. So we have 7,300 officers, that is to 1 is to 1,200, when the recommended United Nations 1 is to 222. And again, that 7,000 to 200 is not people on the street doing public safety. That's people in CID that don't get on the street. That's people in traffic that don't get on the street. That's people in prosecution that don't get on the street. That's people in the executive that don't go on the street. So if you want to narrow it down to how many actual people are doing public safety policing, that's even 1 is to 2,000 or 3,000. And then most of the FSPU that I've met with, I had the pleasure of meeting with, majority, I think, 90% are women. So you can see the challenge they're facing, trying to arrest perpetrators who are men. And the other thing is they need assistance from regular police who are also perpetrators themselves, so have no interest in helping another officer arrest another officer, another person for something they know they're also guilty of. Yeah. So they're the challenges that they face in police. They're extensive. The good thing now is police are undergoing a major reform like never before. So in the next year, we will see significant improvements. We're seeing improvements now. Most of those aren't visible to the public. But going forward between now and next year, we will start to move extensively, aggressively in FSPU, because we had a discussion with FSPU, and normally they sit on the bottom, and they've now, under my ministry, a discussion with the commissioner, we're going to put it equal priority as all other sectors in policing. So accountability is one means of stopping gender-based violence by applying a pain threshold of accountability in the law. We need, for community and society, still needs to stop this crime from being committed so it doesn't end up in a police station. So police don't just deal with gender-based violence, they deal with every single crime. And gender-based violence just happens to be one. What needs to be done? Certain people have certain skills. Awareness on media needs to keep this as a frontline issue. So newspapers need to put 3 stories a day on gender-based violence. Yes? Radios need to cover a story every time they do the news, run a gender-based violence. But you also risk being desensitizing the issue. So like now, COVID-19 is one of the most dangerous pandemics in this globe's history, and people are tired of hearing about COVID-19. Yes? There's so much awareness on that, we're tired of it. Yeah, until you get sick or you're a victim of gender-based violence, same thing. Until you're a victim or affected, all of a sudden now you care about it. Yeah? So awareness is important, accountability is important. The judiciary system, which the government of today under the Marape Stephen government is focused on fixing. There is no quick solution, but I can tell you that we are covering ground, and unlike any other government, and we're dealing with a mess that we didn't create, but we are left to fix. Violence, it's instinctive. Someone says something, bang. Woman says something, because the man, it's instinctive of how he is going to react. And to condition that person out is going to take a lot of time and resources. So we need counseling, because people need to understand what is the good from basically bad behavior to good behavior, what are the pain and pleasure thresholds. So counseling allows people to address the psychological issues. Putting someone in jail is not going to solve the problem, because if we put a perpetrator who just started to belt his wife into a criminal system where he will end up in Bomana and be mentored and trained by the worst criminals in our country. So he goes from just gender-based violence to becoming mentored by criminals to say it's okay to rape, it's okay to kill, it's okay to torture. And he comes out, and that's exactly what he's going to do, because now he's just been indoctrinated in a criminal system. So throwing all the perpetrators in jail is not going to fix the problem either. So we need to, one option is to classify cases, better classify cases of gender-based violence. There's no point smashing one guy who just started this bad behavior, where basically he can be reformed quickly, versus someone who's a point, in Jennilin's case, to the extreme point where there was a basis of already torture. And so it was already going to happen. And had police been able to identify, and I think they did in this case, I mean, not to the case before the court, and she insisted to basically withdraw the charges. And other people were putting pressure on her. So even her peers were putting pressure on her to withdraw the charge. And then there's other case, similar case, where one perpetrator who's killed his partner, accused of killing his partner, got bail. And then other perpetrators said, oh, well, if he can get bail, while he's already been in court on killing his partner, then we can get bail too. So they're bad examples where we need to go in and correct, because bad perpetrators can rely on those bad precedents. So some of them might need upskilling. Some of them might need help in writing statements. Some of them might need counselors to come and speak to a victim. And so how does that counselor get to the station? In a lot of cases, they need medical certificates before they can arrest. And so now it's a look at us, well, that's crazy. If a woman is sitting in front of you bleeding, so clearly evidence is clear that she's a victim of violence. You don't need to send her tell her to catch the bus to go down to the medical clinic to spend 100 kina that she doesn't have on a medical certificate that they take 1 week to do. Yeah? So there are issues within the judiciary and the police that we are going to sort out. So there's reasonable cause, someone's assaulted, the protocols are now changed. Don't go and ask her to get a certificate, take a photo, that's evidence to make an arrest. You can get the medical certificate later. And so we've now identified some of those issues. My office working with Sergeant Job on the issues of vehicles as well. But again, you can get an officer vehicle, next minute you'll be on Facebook because someone rolled it over and smashed it because they were drink driving. Yes. And that officer was supposed to be the lead officer, role model officer on the Station of Excellence. Given a car that was funded by AFP, donated, and he goes and rolls the vehicle. And so the question, where does it stop? So role models coming forward like Trish and Preston and Bono, they're the key. So the 1% are the worst, the 1% are the best. And in the middle is the population that we need to shift. And in the absence of the 1% that are extremely good, the 1% will rule. And so the reality is you can't get everyone to be the best. There's only about 1%, 2%. It's to get the 1% up and get working to move the mass. And then the mass will focus on doing the right thing, build good behaviors, become role models, and set the next generation to adopt good behavior and be good citizens. And so again, it's a massive issue, but you can sit down and have the best way forward is workshops to find the best strategy on an action and activity plan to start getting things. And if we achieve things, then people get motivated. You achieve another thing, you get motivated. If you're not achieving anything, then people are no longer motivated. Thank you.
The reason why I wanted to jump in is because one of the discussions that's been going on Facebook with my Mara Novada and other people is about how do we fund these things? How do we resource it? Minister has talked about a whole heap of things that need funding and resourcing, and while I've been, as some of you may know, I've left the Australian government, I work for the Papua New Guinean government now, and one of the things I've been looking at over the last couple of weeks is appropriations in the budget, looking at appropriations for gender-based violence or lack thereof, and looking at how the appropriations in different sectors that should fit into this picture work. One thing, the police budget has an appropriation, for example, the police band and the dog unit. There is no appropriation for the SSV unit. And so that's something that we should be looking at addressing so that they do have the resources specifically for the activities that they undertake. The other problem, of course, is there's a big gap between what's budgeted and what actually arrives. And so a lot of people have been going, oh, look at the community services budget. There's a GBV secretariat that received 2 million kina. Where did it go? If you look in the budget 2 years later, you see where the actual spending went. And so when I looked at it, no spending ever went to that secretariat. The money never arrived. Now, there's a number of reasons for that. Sometimes the money can get sent, but the department puts it into something else. Sometimes the money just doesn't get sent. So these are the sorts of things within the government that we need to fix if we're going to start addressing this in a holistic rather than ad hoc way. Sergeant mentioned that one of the main sources of assistance he's had has been the Law and Justice program that was run by the Australian government. And this is my colleague Christy, who's been involved in the reconfiguration of that. There is a new gender-based violence program coming. There's been a lot of talk about the end of the old one. There's a new one coming, and it will be significant and enhanced. But that's just one source of assistance, and that's deployed by a donor. It's not about Papua New Guinea doing it themselves. And I think that's what we as, well, you as citizens and I as somebody who's sitting in an office can help with, is putting that demand onto the people making the decisions and saying, hey, it's not enough just to give the police some money and hope they spend it on gender-based violence. We need to make sure they have an appropriation, and then we need to make sure that they get paid that appropriation, and then they will have the resources to make change, because Sergeant's absolutely right. They don't have the resources at the moment. When I talk to people in safe houses, when I talk to people in the counselling areas, they're all saying, we get there, they can't print anything, there's no print toner, they can't drive anywhere because there's no fuel in the vehicle. These are the things that stop the system from working, just at a very, very fundamental level. So the supplementary budget is coming. It's being worked on by some fantastic people in Treasury. One thing that I can do, and that others who work in Treasury can do, is make sure that we start to disaggregate these things and make sure they are properly resourced and follow it up. And that's where the accountability mechanism that is social media can come into play, because you can get up there and demand and say, this is a priority for our community, and are you, as the government, resourcing it?
Thank you. You know, that's the funny thing, is that when everyone was planning their marches and protests, and there was quite a few of them and different petitions going around, and some people kept saying, oh, why don't you all just do it together, all get together? And my feeling about that was, why does it have to be one? I mean, it's the same discussion as small businesses we have all the time. Why can't there be more than 2 billow makers in town and 2 basket weavers in town? And it's the same thing. If we've got something to say, you can say it with your group here and with your group there, and I think that's okay. And that's why I wanted to host this. I felt like I could see most people I know getting a little burnt out, getting a little bit worried, things aren't moving, and they think it's all going to be solved overnight, and it's not. And I thought that's why we need to create spaces like this, not just here. I'm going to keep this up every month, and I'm going to encourage different people to come and talk. And I feel like, again, it's easy enough that all of us can do that in our neighborhoods, in our homes, in our sporting circles, in our church groups. So that's why I wanted to do this, to encourage us that we can keep the conversation going. People are interested, and they're inboxing me all the time asking what's next, what's happening, how can I help? And I am always just referring them to people I know. Well, this person's the closest to you, this is what they're doing. This is the youth group, this is what they're doing. You can give this person a call at that office. And I think that's what we need to do more of right now. Just as citizens, doing our little bit to make a difference in our neighborhood. And enough of us doing that will make an impact. Thank you so much for sharing. And I want to just end on that note to say the reason that you're all here, and the reason that I asked all of you to come, and even the people that have come today just to join us, is because of the positivity you're bringing to this. And that's why I wanted you here, is to keep the positive movement going. You have started something amazing. You have started something amazing. You, everybody sitting here is doing something amazing in their everyday. And that's why I wanted you here to keep that positivity going. So again, I'm going to do this every month. I'll invite you all again. Come when you can. Try host something similar as well wherever you can, and just keep that positivity going, okay? Because it's moving, and we are seeing the change, and us sitting here talking about it is evidence of that.